So, Stanley, before we go right in, there are two things that have been on my mind that I wanted to discuss with you. Just 5 minutes, we'll talk based on those issues, and then we can move on to other things. The first is, why did Kamala Harris lose this election? So, briefly, you're going to tell me. And the second one would be, why has there been sort of a bipartisan non sympathy for the killing of the CEO? I want to understand what's going on in US society for to have that kind of response, not just from the left, but also from the right. So let's start with, why did you think Kamala Harris lost this election?
I think it was primarily two things. I think it was Joe Biden, basically that first debate he did with Trump, where he was visibly not well, not himself. And then I think ultimately it was immigration. They did not do a good job. That, in my opinion, they didn't take immigration very seriously. You may remember Greg Abbott, who is the current governor of Texas. He sent a load of immigrants to New York City. He basically just as a publicity stunt, hey, I got a bunch of these people crossing my border. I'm going to make the liberals feel some pain. So he sent a busload of them up to New York City. And then shortly after that, DeSantis, governor of Florida, sent a load of immigrants to Martha's Vineyard. Both of them were publicity stunts. In my opinion, that's when the Democrats should have started taking immigration seriously. It's like, hey, these guys are doing stunts on us. We need to take action, and we need to take decisive action now. They kind of let immigration kind of overwhelm them. You got immigrants in Chicago, you got more immigrants to New York City, etc. And they just never got a handle on it. And at the time, this is looking back in hindsight. At the time, I just kind of figured, well, it is what it is. The next thing is the big shock that, oh, hell, Joe Biden has good days and bad days. All of a sudden, he's pressured to drop out, and you've got Kamala with 90 days to get ready for a presidential campaign. I didn't think it was a big deal. Again, this is hindsight, but not going through a primary. Basically, Kamala Harris kind of not going through the process of a primary and the Democratic convention. The right complained about, hey, she wasn't chosen via a democratic process. I didn't think it was a big deal at the time. Turns out it was a big deal. So basically, immigration and Joe Biden not being well and it being kept from the American people. I think those were the two biggest things. And even though the Republicans have all three branches of government now, if you look at the popular vote, Trump only won by 1.5%. He did not run away with the popular vote. However, you can argue a mandate if you're a Republican or a MAGA Republican, because, hey, we got all three branches of government. Consequently, in a way, it's kind of thrilling to see that the Republicans control all three branches. Now they got to govern. Okay, they do not have Democrats except for the filibuster. They have no excuse to govern now. There's no Supreme Court that's against them. There's no Democratic president. Both houses of Congress, as of January 3rd or whenever Congress changes over, they have all three branches. They got to govern. There will be no excuses now. And as far as the CEO dude, I don't know what to think. Apparently, healthcare or insurance executives are not popular people. Why this guy, Killer's an Ivy League graduate, valedictorian of his high school class, and he went to a real exclusive prep school in Baltimore. I think it's just a matter of, hey, he's a good-looking kid with a good pedigree, and girls love him, and Americans are just weird like that.
Yeah, but before his photographs was out there, the reaction was pretty spontaneous. It was instant. When things like this happen, there's usually going to be a lot of condemnation from either side or from both sides. But it seemed both sides from the jump, well, they had no sympathies. So
this guy was like under securities fraud investigation. He's the CEO of an insurance company. Not a popular job to have. And apparently he just was not sympathetic. He was an anti-hero, versus a hero. So that's the only thing I can say. You would think such a brazen. I think one of the things that kind of shocked people is the way the murder was carried out. I mean, this is like broad daylight on a New York City street. Who does that? It was just an extraordinary event, an extraordinarily bad event, shocking event, but it was just the guy had brass.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think that just impresses. We are going through a populist phase. When America goes through populist phases every now and again, where the everyman, Trump being our, he says he will be the people's retribution. I think we're just in a retribution kind of mood. And, some super rich guy who is under investigation for securities fraud. People get pissed off at their insurance companies because they don't cover a lot of things people think they should be covering. I think it was just a perfect storm. Perfect guy, perfect storm. The crime was brazen. The guy who committed it should be like a Brahmin with his elite background. He wasn't some kid from the hood. So perfect storm.
Yeah.
That's the best I can do to explain the reaction.